Құрметті конференция қонақтары, спикерлер мен журналистер.
Distinguished participants of the conference, speakers and journalists, now we're gonna start our session on the evolution of Islamic capital market. On your badges you have QR codes. By scanning it you can go to the Telegram channel and gain updates about all the sessions and our event. Thank you for participating in our session, and in case of fire we have emergency exit between blocks 3.3 and 3.4, and I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Turhan Ali Abdul Manap for moderating this session. Thank you.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. And very good afternoon to all of you. And to come to join the panel discussion on evolution of Islamic capital market in Kazakhstan. My name is Turhan Ali Abdul Manaf. I'm honored to be the moderator for this session. And today we are going to discuss one of the most important topics on Islamic capital market. And as all of you know, Islamic capital market, one of the important component of Islamic finance. And from the previous session, we already know because Islamic banks facing a few challenges and issues in terms of the operation. So one of the solutions as proposed by our panelists, because we don't have active sukuk market to facilitate the operation. So I'm honored to have esteemed panelists for our discussion and to share their valuable insight and perspectives. Let me read all the names, okay? The first one is Brother Mustafa Adil from the Data Analytics Department of the London Stock Exchange. The next one is Brother Salman Jafari. Are you online, Brother Jafari? Brother Salman?
Hi. Hi, I am.
Okay, welcome. The Chief Business Development Officer of the AIFC. The number 3 is our Sister Alma. Sister Alma is here, okay. The number 4 is Brother Arman Batayev.
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, as all of us know, Islamic capital market have developed significantly over the past few years. And of course, they play an important role for the economic growth and economic development. And as we know, a sophisticated, developed capital market is critical to the balanced development of economy and the nation. However, Islamic capital market as the important component of the Islamic finance system supposed to play another important roles. But unfortunately, as Islamic bank does, Islamic capital market are very much concentrated on the GCC area and Southeast Asia. And CIS areas as one of the most important regions and giving the most popular Muslim ethnics, the Islamic finance and Islamic capital market are still lag behind in certain perspectives. So today we would like to ask our panelists a few questions to share the experience, to their important views, and how we are going to develop the Islamic capital market in this region. So, and of course, as a moderator, my role is just to facilitate the session to be a more productive and insightful. And of course, during the session, I'm going to ask at least 1 or 2 questions from my panelists. If the time allows, inshallah, I will allocate time for the audience. Anyway, I would like to take this moment to thank the sponsors, the organizers to make the event possible. And of course, I also would like to ask all of you who are attend here to join us to share the moment. Thank you very much. By seeing that, I would like to ask Brother Mustafa Adil. Brother Mustafa Adil is one of my old friends. Actually, we had worked in certain projects for many years. And of course, he is very dynamic and very experienced, knowledgeable Islamic what we call a specialist. Okay, can I just read his because he have a long word bio, but I try to make it short. Okay, I try to make it short. Actually, Mustafa Adil is the head of the Islamic finance at the London Stock Exchange Group. He leads the organization's effort in Islamic finance and markets, providing tailored service and knowledge-based solutions to support the objective and strategies of government entities, multilateral banks, organizations, and top financial institutions. In the Islamic market, okay, Mustafa and his team is specialized in market engagement, research, consulting service, and knowledge solution to effectively meet the unique needs of the clients. Actually, Kazakhstan is one of your unique clients, inshallah. So, Brother Mustafa, okay, given your extensive experience of the global capital market, can you just share your views on the recent evolution of Islamic capital market, including its key drivers, and of course the indication to the emerging market like Kazakhstan? Please.
Thank you very much, Brother Turkan, for a very, very generous introduction. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you. And I think, we touched upon Islamic capital markets in the last session as well. It is one of the most significant segments of any Islamic finance industry in any market that you're looking at, right? I mean, when we look at the market globally, Islamic capital markets and Sukuk in particular, which is the primary instrument used in Islamic capital markets, continues to be one of the fastest growing segments of the Islamic finance industry. Currently, it sits at around somewhere in excess of $800 billion. And, it's grown significantly in terms of the depth of instruments and the type of instruments that they've used. When you talked about the evolution of the Islamic capital markets, I mean, we've seen this industry evolve very, very significantly. One of the key features that is different today than it was many years ago is the standardization of the Sukuk instrument, right? Previously, we all remember a time where Sukuk was very market specific. There was unique nuances for Sukuks that were, being developed and launched in different markets, and there was not as much cross-border trading in the old days. Now we have standardized the product, we have international standards, we have globally acceptable structures and terms and conditions that are utilized. So you have much more greater international tradability of Sukuk. I think that's one of the big changes that we've seen. Another key change that we've seen, which is also very pleasant, is that increasingly we've seen more and more corporates enter the Sukuk space, right? Again, if we go back a few decades, Sukuk was primarily issued by sovereigns, and sovereigns were the ones who would set the tone for the market and for Sukuk issuances. Today, when you look at the market, it is much more diversified in terms of semi-government and corporate entities being, issuers of Sukuk. And I think that helps to drive, the development of a capital market in any jurisdiction to help, more effectively direct capital towards corporates that need it. And I think the third biggest trend that we've seen recently in the Sukuk space is the significance of sustainability and sustainability initiatives. And I know that in the conference today, sustainability has been a key factor in many of the other sessions that have taken place as well. But on the Sukuk side also, sustainability is becoming a key driver. Sorry, let me try and move this here. Is that better? All right, my apologies for that. So sustainability again is being a key driver and a key impact within this Sukuk space. Today, whereas Sukuk over the last few decades have been growing at about 15% year on year, green Sukuk are growing at about 80% over the last 5 years, right? Today, when we look at institutional investors, we at LSEC did a survey of some of the major institutional investors in the Sukuk space, and we found that over 54% of them have incorporated ESG considerations in their Sukuk investment decision making. So we see sustainability as being a key driver of the Sukuk market going forward. Now, the other point that you mentioned regarding what role Islamic capital markets plays in an emerging market like Kazakhstan or others, I think it is a very, very critical role, because capital markets is one of the more efficient and more effective way to mobilize capital for all stakeholders within an ecosystem, whether it's borrowers or whether it's the users of that, or whether it's the owners of that capital, right? And, it creates the instruments that provide tradability, and we know from our work that there is significant demand for these instruments. We know that there's Sharia-sensitive capital that is being underdeployed that can be deployed. We heard in the previous session also the CEO of Ilaf Bank was talking about having excess liquidity but no place to put that liquidity, right? So these instruments do become a basic fundamental pillar for an efficient Islamic banking market. They serve as a benchmark in the market. They serve as the basis of many of the liquidity instruments. And another key thing that happens with Sukuk and Islamic capital markets in particular is that they serve as a forerunner to addressing many of the regulatory and sustainable and structuring challenges that exist. So when you have major institutions issue Sukuks for major, signature transactions, what happens is that precedent can then roll into banking products and can roll into other solutions to be utilized at the consumer level, at a retail banking level. So again, Islamic capital markets forms a very, very significant pillar, and I think any emerging market that wants to, implement an effective Islamic finance ecosystem needs to look at the development of their Islamic capital markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Mustafa Adil, for this insightful discussion about the evolution of the Islamic capital and the significance it plays in the Islamic finance as a whole. So, can I come to Brother Salman Jafari? Are you here, Brother Salman? Brother Salman?
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope the connection is good enough. You can hear me?
Okay, clear. Okay, so Brother Salman Jafari is the Chief Business Development Officer for the Dubai International Financial Center. He is a member of the management team and responsible for overseeing the DIFC client portfolio as well as the center's growth strategy. Brother Salman has more than 25 years of experience in North Africa, Asia, and MENA, with leadership role in global firms such as Olive, Women, Citibank, American Express, PwC, etc. Brother Salman holds an MBA from the Cornell University and the BA in International Relations from the Colgate University in the United States. And he serves on the board of several non-profit organizations. As we know that DIFC has established itself as the leading hub for developing Islamic finance and has strong track record in promoting Islamic finance, developing the Islamic finance of products. And of course, the IFC also be considered as one of the leader in legal and framework most advanced in terms of its structure in this region. So given this leading role and the model, we would like to hear from Brother Salman Jafari. Okay, what is the strategy the DIFC is accepting? Can we know more about the future? Because as I heard, the DIFC strategy is about developing the future of finance. So can you elaborate more? What does it mean? How does Islamic finance fit in? So what does the Islamic capital market could be plays a role in this process? Thank you very much, brother.
Well, thank you, Brother Turkan. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope that you can hear me and see me okay. And if you need me to speak up, please let me know. It's a real honor to be part of this conversation. I regret not being able to physically travel to Kazakhstan, but this is just about the next best thing. It's also good to reconnect with some friends. Mustafa Adil is somebody I've worked with in the past, and we continue to work together. Hi, Mustafa. And I should also say that there is a long-standing relationship between the Astana Financial Center and the IFC, which I'm very happy to continue that relationship. Let me very briefly spend maybe 30 seconds on ensuring that everyone understands what the DIFC is. And then let me tell you a little bit about our plans and how it relates to Islamic finance and capital markets and Islamic finance. For those of you who don't know, the Dubai International Financial Center is probably one of the first financial centers of its kind globally. And I think it's very important to understand the foundational principles, which were to develop an alternative to hydrocarbon growth. It was a way to diversify the economy and create jobs in a manner that was ethical and consistent with global standards. And to make a long story short, in our almost 20 years, that model has been very successful. Today, we are a financial center that has 37,000 people and over 4,500 companies, including, of course, an outstanding ecosystem of Islamic finance and Islamic related organizations. Um, Now, part of the mandate was for any financial center, as Mustafa has so rightly said, is to intermediate. So you have people who need capital and you have sources of capital. And one of the things that we've done quite well is create that marketplace. So within banking, for example, there is now a banking book of $200 billion. Off balance sheet, there's a market of something like $500 billion worth of assets under management for funds who invest, okay? And we have a very deep insurance market. Now, our strategy is called the Future of Finance because we're trying to do a few things. One is to digitize financial services, which is something that's very important for Islamic finance as well, but also looking at new and business models that will ethically and sustainably drive economic growth in UAE and Dubai and also from here. And let me now touch upon the link between what we do and Islamic capital markets. On the demand side, so I'll break it up into maybe supply, demand, talent, and platform. On the demand side, when you create a financial center, you create ecosystems, you create an aggregation of talent. We have large corporates and multinationals who come here, they pool together, and as Mustafa mentioned, the need for financing, and particularly Islamic financing, is a subset of that. So by gathering entities together, we create kind of the network effect. We create and aggregate demand from quality institutions that are coming to the AIFC to grow their businesses into the region, and growth, as you know, requires capital. On the supply side, what we've been able to do is to create an ecosystem of incredible professionals in financial services, including people who specialize in Islamic finance. We have Islamic funds, we have Islamic windows for all the global and regional institutions here. They employ incredibly talented Islamic finance professionals, bankers, asset managers, takaful people. And that creates a market for supply as well. But bigger picture, let me submit to you a very interesting observation. The markets that we serve, Dubai, UAE, we are itself a small market, but we serve the Middle East, Africa, South Asia markets, which is a population of over 2 billion. These markets are young, they're growing, and they're predominantly Muslim. So there's an incredible opportunity on the supply and demand side to tap into Islamic finance as a means to fund and to grow those businesses. Let me also submit to you that we have worked very closely, Mustafa has been part of this as well, with Dubai's efforts to centralize and to create depth in Islamic markets. So Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, and the Prime Minister of UAE, has long called for Dubai to be one of the centers of excellence for Islamic finance. And the way in which Dubai approached this problem was to say, when you create real economic activity, whether it's halal food, tourism, cosmetics, manufacturing, the financing will follow. Let me quickly conclude my introductory remarks by saying there's an incredible opportunity for diversification of assets in the Islamic finance space. As was mentioned before, this game right now is largely on the sukuk side. But what we have in front of us now is an incredible opportunity to diversify into equities as well. It is no secret for the audience that in the emerging markets in the last 18 months led global IPOs in terms of selling companies to the public, and the UAE and Saudi Arabia combined accounted for approximately 50% of those IPOs by volume. I think this represents a tremendous opportunity for the Islamic finance industry to meet these capital requirements for the growth of our emerging markets, because the underlying demand for Sharia assets and products are there. And I think it's a great time to discuss specific ways in which we promote those assets in the capital markets.
Thank you very much, Brother Salman, for your insights on how the Dubai Islamic Financial Center does, which give us a lot of lesson for the emerging market. And having heard from the global channel from Brother Mustafa Adil and the best practice from Dubai Financial Center, I would like to turn to our local market. And I would like to turn to Sister Alma. Sister Alma is actually the managing director and for GAC Skybridge Investment Board member, and she has over 15 years of experience in investment, banking, and M&A transaction, working with clients both in Kazakhstan and abroad. Alma is a highly experienced professional in her field, and Skybridge Investment is committed to promote Islamic finance and issuing Islamic bonds for clients in CIS countries. Alma has played a key role in driving the growth and development of Islamic finance industry in CIS region, thanks to her extensive experience in this field and her in-depth understanding of the unique challenge and opportunities in these CIS countries. I would like to ask Sister Alma, okay? The ecosystem for Islamic capital market is very important to develop a dynamic Islamic capital market, especially for Kazakhstan. So from your point of view, what you see, okay, the government and the private sector have to play in terms of this investment, infrastructure, and education. How can these stakeholders can interplay to create a sustainable and dynamic Islamic capital market in this country?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, brother, for this introduction. So Skybridge Invest is on the market, I think, since 2003, and recently we announced the Islamic financing and Islamic capital markets as one of our directions for strategic development of the company. And from the local perspective, I think we started the discussion probably on the session that was prior to that, but first of all, I think what I can say is that we see that demand is there. And it was really good to hear that AIFC together with ISDB is launching the survey to understand how deep the demand is for the Islamic finance instruments. I think it's good to have the number, then it can serve as an incentive for the issuers to be more active and try to explore the various instruments and issues they can do to get access to the investors that want to invest into Sharia compliant instruments. From my point of view, here we have quite a universe of investors that require specific instruments. As it was mentioned earlier, at least these are Islamic banks that are quite rich in terms of liquidity, but they require highly liquid instruments. And when we talk about highly liquid instruments, I would say that probably among the players that we have on the markets currently, I think that the government might be one of the major players to tap the market and to become a champion or a benchmark to issue the first sukuk in local currency, and this will be a good example for the other corporates. Here, of course, we have a number of issues from the regulatory perspective, the ones related to taxation, the matters related to the transfer of assets to the SPCs for the specific sukuk, because as the government owned assets, there are certain specifics always, but we all know there are certain structures and legal solutions to this matter that can be used. So I think when we are starting to develop something from the very beginning, and I would say that in Kazakhstan we are still at the beginning stage, the involvement of the government might be significant in this matter. For the corporates and for investors, I would say, in the corporate issuers, the other matter that is significant is in education and awareness raising. I would say that still probably majority of population and also the corporates, they lack understanding of how the financing in Sharia compliant way is done, or how can you invest, what instruments do you have, what structures you can use. So there needs to be this effort to raise awareness shall continue, and I think it will be, we will benefit, all of us will benefit from that at the end. And in this regard, I think we are quite in a good position because we have AIFC and their support to development of the Islamic finance sector, and they can be a kind of intermediary and the pusher on this matter and unite all the parties and counterparties to work together and achieve the goals that we have in this regard. On the education side also, as one of the examples, probably it would be good to go even down to the university levels. For instance, you know that the other sphere that is quite actively developing now is in ESG and green finance. And several years ago, it was also at the very initial stage. We didn't have probably enough understanding of how it can be done. But now already in the universities, there are special, these specialties are introduced on green finance, on ESG. And I think for Islamic banking and Islamic capital markets, the same can be done, so that the human capital is raised, and at some point in the future there will be professionals that already understand how everything works. So this is my view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Alma, for this insightful analysis of the current market for the issues for the Kazakhstan market. And based on your elaboration, I would like to come to our next speaker, Brother Arman Batayev. When I first see his CV, I am so much amazed because what he holds so many important positions, and he is so dynamic. And if I read, I need 5 minutes. So better I just shorten it. Sorry.
Sure.
So yeah, to save the time. Okay, he serves as a CFO of asset management company, Harry Kalem Babsman, and also he's the CEO of the open-ended investment company, the Staple H, and the managing director of consulting company UDI. And additionally, he is also co-founder and director of the School of Financial and Investment Literacy FinMentors, and also a member of the governing board of COEMS. So given his so much leading role, and I would like to ask Brother Arman, okay, how does Islamic financial products and service evolved in Kazakhstan? So what is the technology playing in this process?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, overall, if you see all these companies, they are around actually finance. Yeah. So my edtech firm has also modules in their courses about Islamic finance. Like Islamic finance in Kazakhstan in its nascent stage. Yeah. So first of all, we have to promote like the awareness, yeah, and about Islamic finance itself, because like the young generations and due to historical circumstances, not everyone knows, yeah, requirements of Sharia laws. So in EdTech firm, we are trying to promote that. Then in a consulting firm, we are trying to move to do age to age, from haram to halal, to like help financial companies to obtain licenses that provide financial services in Sharia compliance. So and first of all, we obtained it for ourselves, yeah, and opened asset management firm and opened the investment fund, which is the first one to comply with Sharia, so that like everyone will be included. Yeah. First of all, what is Islamic finance? It's about inclusion, because I myself, when I started my job and I had my savings, I didn't know where to put it. Yeah, because Kazakhstan is heavily relying on banking finance. Yeah, everyone uses deposits, but it's haram. So what I did, I went to stock market, and then what I did, I tried to create financial products and instruments for all my fellow Muslim brothers and sisters, so that they had chance to invest in compliance with Sharia. So if you see the logic of these companies, what I created and where I am holding the managing positions, it's ecosystem that we are trying to create, actually, the Islamic finance from the scratch. And that technology played a huge role in that. For example, last year we had a boost in retail investors entering into stock market. Alma can confirm that about, I think, 1 million accounts were opened because banks were allowed to have brokerage license, and through omnibus accounts everyone actually came to the stock market. So right now, actually, we are at the beginning what's going to happen. So we have very young generation. It's like average age is 30 years. So and a lot of Generation Z is coming, who were born together with these iPhones. Yeah, and what it means is that if we create enough products, and if we ease the process of entering into the Islamic capital markets and into the Islamic financial products, then there will be a big audience in this region, because it's a predominantly Muslim region. So technology allowed, in 1 year, to boost the accounts from 150,000 to 1,200,000. So what it allowed, and then so we also try to use technology in also onboarding process, and I think I will later elaborate on that. And technology also removes the barriers and limits. For example, when I first started to invest in, I think 11 or 12 years ago, it was very expensive actually to trade. But right now, it's very small amount, 0.04% of your trade amount. Before it was actually a huge amount. So it also makes it easier. So again, technology allowed, the brokers that are oriented to retail investors who are employing technology, making it easy. So right now, and it's of course it's about not only Islamic but overall the situation about retail investors into stock market.
Thank you very much, Brother Arman. So given the time is running out, so I have to ask a second round question, but I remind my esteemed panelists, please control your time. Yeah? So I will shorten our question. Actually, I prepared some tough question for them, but for the time concern. Okay, Brother Mustafil, okay, we have heard about the global trend of Islamic capital market, and also we heard that was the efficient Islamic capital markets plays a great role in the Islamic finance system. So, of course, what are the challenges to establish efficient Islamic capital markets? Important, but given this context of Kazakhstan, so what do you see? Is there any opportunities for the Kazakhstan and the global market or in region to have partner or what collaboration to develop the Kazakhstan Islamic capital market, or for this country or for this region? Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much, Brother Turkan. And I think that every speaker really has talked about the potential that Islamic capital markets raises. So the question is, why is it not being rolled out? What are the challenges that they're facing? And primarily, I think there's three main challenges that continue to persist when it comes to Islamic capital markets, and particularly issuance of instruments like Sukuk. The first one is finding the assets. And this has been a challenge that is there across all the different markets, and we've seen it impact because we know the demand is there, but it's only due to an absence of real assets that many countries are not able to issue sukuk and then have to divert and issue, conventional instruments and things like that. And we have examples of that in many different markets. The second challenge, I think, is the challenge regarding structuring, particularly for first-time issuers. When you're issuing an instrument for the first time, structuring the sukuk, getting it in compliance with local regulations, getting in compliance with local laws, making it acceptable for international investors is a big challenge. And increasingly now, there's a lot more standards that are coming out from institutions like AIFC and others that also, have an implication on how sukuk are structured. So that becomes a challenge. And I think really the third challenge is primarily a challenge linked to regulation, particularly for new market. The first, when you introduce regulation into the market, there's a lot of uncertainty as to how it will be implemented. There is uncertainty, particularly on the sovereign side, as to what assets can be utilized, what assets cannot be utilized, what assets are, significant from a sovereign perspective. So I think these challenges are the primary three challenges that are there. But, for a market like Kazakhstan, like any other market, they have to go through the process of being an issuer of a local currency instrument, being an issuer of a dollar-denominated instrument, being able to bring in foreign direct investment, being able to build a base of liquidity instruments in the market. And I would say that there's two or three key things for them to focus on. First is to utilize international standards and utilize what is available in that space, what is acceptable in more Islamic markets, because they don't want to do anything that's out of sync with the global Islamic market. They want to be aligned. I think the second thing is to take advantage of reputed scholars, to take advantage of reputed institutions like Islamic Development Bank, ICD and others who are able to help guide them through that process, because it's not an easy process for first-time issuers, and we're aware of that. And I think the third thing would be to promote the instrument in international markets. And there is a lot of demand that sits with Sharia-sensitive investors that are looking for investment opportunities. So if you're effectively able to promote your instrument in those markets and able to showcase that the instrument aligns to other instruments that they're familiar with, I think you get a lot more traction from that. So that would be my advice on how to tackle this scenario.
Thank you very much for this enlightening brief on this, how to set up efficient Islamic capital market. And without delay, I would like to ask Brother Salman. Brother Salman, are you there?
Yes, Brother Gurkhan.
Okay, so for the financial institution to stay relevant, okay, the environmental, social, and governance become a global concern. So can you share us how the AIFC is working towards this direction? I try to make my question short so that I also hope you can make your answer short and okay, simple. Thank you very much.
Yeah, let me just quickly comment on what's been said on the challenges. Look, in a nutshell, and I've said this publicly for many years, no matter how you slice it or dice it, Islamic capital markets and indeed Islamic finance as a percentage of total global finance has underperformed, right? We're at 1%. If you're liberal, you can say 2% of global assets. So there's a significant room for growth. And I think, as Mustafa said, there's tons of liquidity in our markets, but there's just not enough assets. To which I would say, and I'll tell you what we're doing, but a couple of things. Demand is strong, but I feel as though it's not segmented the right way, right? So for example, for many years, we've tried to promote aviation finance as a particularly interesting, aviation is a very, very relevant sector that has physical assets, incredibly, with 30-year, lives, nice, easy depreciation schedules, highly predictable, strong secondary markets, great cash flows, predictable, very well known. And there are many other examples other than real estate of our ability to create assets. And Mustafa's right, there aren't enough. But I think that we need to segment demand in a much more relevant type fashion. Secondly, I agree with the principle that simplification is very important. I mean, to me, it's still strange that straight equity participation, straight risk participation, VC hasn't exploded in Islamic finance. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so that is a precursor to my answer on ESG. The way I see it, ESG is a really, really critical enabler for Islamic finance to really scale, okay, if that's the objective. Scale and become mainstream. And the way to do it is to look at the principles behind each. Look, in the last 15 years, there have been two waves that we've missed. The first wave was ethical investing, ethical finance. I don't think we did enough in that space. Number two is in digital. I'm very, very happy to hear, some of the things that have been said on this panel on digital, but that's another space where digital platforms should have been used to reach people who have an interest in Islamic finance. So to answer your question very quickly, ESG is super important. The principles overlap significantly when there's environmental, social, or governance with Islamic principles. DIFC is obviously working closely with the Dubai government. Dubai is hosting COP28. We have a sustainable finance working group. We have a lot of efforts and initiatives in place to work with our financial institutions on figuring out their readiness. And last but not least, our regulator, the Dubai Financial Services Authority, is in the process of writing a white paper on financing in this space. So I think this is a super opportunity for Islamic finance to really scale up and live up to its growth potential.
Thank you very much, Brother Salman. So without delay, I would like to go to our next speaker, Sister Alma. Okay. We already had about what's the challenge and opportunity in the global Islamic capital market, even in the Kazakhstan, what we call capital market development. So I just want to make the question simple, okay? To make the Kazakhstan Islamic capital market to be practical, workable, so what's the step you believe we need to take to make sure to the regulatory and legal framework what further to attract more insurers and investors to Kazakhstan market?
I think here locally we face the same challenges as globally. So I think the three challenges that you mentioned work the same manner here in Kazakhstan. And I see that one of the first steps will be, as said, thankfully we have already quite huge knowledge accumulated globally on all aspects of Islamic financing, structuring, taxation, documentation, whatever. And the thing now is that we need to have access to that knowledge, learn from that, and see how we can apply it here locally, given the regulatory environment that we have. And I think it might probably trigger the further development of Islamic capital markets in Kazakhstan, and not only in Kazakhstan, but I would say regionally for Central Asia.
Thank you much for this brief, insightful answer. And finally, I want to go to Brother Arman. Okay, my question to you is very simple. Because now there are a lot of, Kazakhstan is a dynamic young nation with a lot of youth who are interested in Islamic finance. My question to you is what maybe a little bit out of this topic, but actually I want to you share with our audience. How do you motivate yourself to enter the Islamic finance industry?
It's actually quite simple. As I said, I couldn't put my savings into deposit, so I entered like stock market, and then understood that I have to help to provide more products to others. That's why actually I entered into this with my friends who also share the same personal beliefs. And that's how we entered. But here I would like to add to the words of, I confirm and support words of Brother Salman Jafari. Actually, that's what we are doing actually. We understood that halal investing overlaps with ESG a lot. And to be honest, last year we had good results because that we used ESG, especially the E part, environmental, and of course, like financial inclusion part. So like our investments into some instruments like TPI, composites, Vestas, and other like public instruments, Zoom, also Alphabet. So like showed good results. We had like 7.7, and it's a lot more. I think 26% above the benchmark. Yeah, and this first quarter also. So we proved actually in with the numbers that halal investing and combining with ESG actually showing better results. And so that's why we are boasting in front of our colleagues. Right now in AIFC, there are 30 asset managers who hold CIS licenses, 32 and 30 investment funds. So I think we are one of those who can like show the results of like the halal investing together with ESG. And of course later we would like to also explore the venture capital, and because in the essence of Islamic finance is risk sharing. Yeah, and venture capital is a lot of risks, and both sides are like sharing the risks. And also last week I participated in venture capital forum where we presented ourselves as financial service providers, but also we stated that we are like in compliance and with Sharia and ESG. So yeah, I support the words of Brother Salman Jafari, and I see that we have a lot of opportunities in that. Thank you.
Because of the time, we only have 1 minute 15 seconds. So to keep my promise, I would like to give a chance to the audience ask one question to the panelists. Please make sure you ask a question and point out to whom to answer. Yes, and any question from the audience? No question? Okay.
Can I answer that question? So, first of all, of course, it's about matter of licensing. So you must be a regulated organization from the regulator. So it's first requirement. Second, we passed like compliance in Sharia with Sahih Invest. It's consulting firm. Who are brothers from Tatarstan who have their consulting firm here with 2 members who hold AIFC certificates. So this I think will suffice. These 2 things. First is they must be regulated, so you must see their licenses. Second, that they passed some kind of they have some kind of certificates, or at least like being in the process, because like passing this process, I know that it's not actually easy to comply. Yeah, sometimes it takes time to be fully in compliance with Sharia.
Brother Arman, so but anyway, I would like to ask the audience to give a big hand to our panelists for giving us insightful views to enhance our understanding about Islamic capital market, and also again, I also would like to thank the audience who joined us to share this wonderful moment. And without you, I would like to thank you again and wish you also a wonderful day. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.